Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Stephanie Vvavilala. She is here to celebrate Sabita Finds Her Voice. Before we invite Stephanie into the studio, we want to invite you to enter our great book giveaway, our great back-to-school book giveaway. We're going to be giving away dozens and dozens of books leading up to the start of school here in the United States, across North America, and across many parts of the world. To enter, connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We'll be posting the details about the book giveaways. Basically, all you need to do to enter is to like and to share our post about the book giveaways. You don't want to miss this. This is a great way to add some real quality books to your family or your classroom library. Again, please connect with us on social media. And another way to enter the contest is by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button at the top of the page. Let us know you want to be entered into our great back-to-school book giveaway. Joining us right now from St. Augustine's in Florida, our guest is the author of a beautiful picture book called Sabita Finds Her Voice. Please welcome to the show, Stephanie Vvavilala. Stephanie, how are you?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to speak with you. I love St. Augustine's. It's one of the one city that we have some beautiful memories of visiting, and it's pretty historic. Am I right? It's the oldest city in North America?
Oldest city in the United States.
In the United States. Yeah. Very cool. Lots of history, really beautiful, and great people, too.
Yes. It's so wonderful here. It's very diverse. It's very eclectic. It's just a beautiful place.
Yeah. So tell us about Sabita Finds Her Voice, please.
Yeah. So Sabita Finds Her Voice was inspired by my own daughter, Sabita, who is 9 now, but she has autism and she is nonverbal. And so when she was younger, we wanted to find a way that she could communicate so she could, share what she wanted or what she needed or be able to participate, in activities and talk to peers and go to school and all that good stuff. And so we tried a lot of different methods, for her, but she really resonated with the iPad and the electronic forms of communication. So we started her using an iPad and a very, simple program. And so she, started using it. And when we would go places like to the grocery store or to the bowling alley or things like that, people would be like, oh, what games is she playing? I'm like, it's not games. It's actually her words. She's trying to communicate with you. And so that's just been in my head for the past couple years that people are not educated about this and they don't really understand about the iPads and the communication and what, kids can do with that, nonverbal kids, whether it's nonverbal from autism, whether there's a medical issue that, a child can't produce speech or whatever. The situation is, I just wanted to create, awareness and education about these iPads communication systems and how powerful, that they are for kids. So that inspired me to write the book.
So let me just make sure everybody's aware. So Sabita walks around her community. She has an iPad with her. And if she wants to communicate at the grocery store or the Dunkin' Donuts, that she can press a button on her iPad and there's something programmed there where the iPad will say, can I have a jelly donut?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, Sabita is typing now. So this program is amazing because when she started it, in that situation, there would be maybe a picture of a donut, or something, and she would press that and it would say donut. And as she's progressed with using it and her language progressed and her spelling has progressed and things like that, now she can type out, I want a donut and hit the button, and it will output, that voice of whatever she types in or whatever, she presses on.
What an exciting time for a parent of a child with special needs. It wasn't that long ago, and it was certainly in our lifetime. I worked with kids who had severe developmental disabilities back in the late 80s, and there were those kids who were nonverbal, who couldn't communicate. There just wasn't the technology for them to communicate. They could point to things. Some kids couldn't point, but they could look at things. So if you're working with the kids and you're a family member, then you learn how to communicate with them and pick up on their ways that they were communicating. But for them to go out and it wasn't possible for them to really go out into the public and communicate with a stranger or with, a casual acquaintance. Now your daughter has the ability to be more independent, to have conversations, although not in a traditional way, but have conversations with her peers.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can fully understand her. I mean, when we started exploring what other options there were for communication, sign is a big one. We have the Florida School for Deaf and Blind here in St. Augustine, which is amazing. And so, that community does, a lot of sign languaging, and things like that. But with Sabita being on the spectrum and having, fine motor deficits and things like that, like the signing just, wasn't something that she could catch on to. And we were having to modify things so much that even if someone knew sign language, they wouldn't really know her sign language because she couldn't do the intricacies of, making those distinctions fine motorly. And also, if she went to McDonald's, like typically, most McDonald's, there's not someone there that speaks sign language, or the grocery store, et cetera. So even if she had the skill to be able to output that information, communication is two-way. So that listener would need to be able to understand it in order to respond. And the iPad is amazing for that because anybody can understand, what it says. Even if you can't hear, you can see what it says on there. So literally anybody can be able to understand what she's communicating with it.
As you're speaking, I'm just thinking there's an argument to be made that Sabita is actually, her form of communication is better than, mine.
Right. Yeah, for certain. Well, I think it's one of those things that there, can be some controversy with autism and communication and, all those kinds of things. But I think what we found with Sabita was we gave her all the options to communicate and allowed her to choose what she wanted. And she chose this. And we don't force her, so to speak, to speak with it. It's really like on her terms. And she will, respond, but she loves it. She can see when she presses, with your example, like donut, and she gets a donut, like that's amazing. And that's reinforcing. And she wants to do that more, and other kids, when she was going to school, the VPK and to kindergarten and first grade, all the other kids were fascinated. Like, what is it? What are those words? Like, tell me about it. Like, they really wanted to learn and they really wanted to be able to understand it and communicate with her. And again, was another reason why I'm like, well, that was a small area that was exposed, but there's the entire world and the need for more education and awareness and advocacy for what this is, and people talking to their kids and their kids reading books about it and having that, as inclusion in terms of diversity and like, us teaching. These are, situations where, we want kids to be able to understand that and be comfortable to say, oh yeah, I read that book. Now there's this kid in my class, that uses that and I understand that. And now maybe, I can actually go up to him, or her and engage in communication. And it's a win-win, for all of us. So.
Absolutely. One of the things, and I've shared this on the podcast in the past, I grew up a long, long time ago. But, when I grew up, if we saw somebody who was different, if somebody who was using a cane to get around or had hearing aids or was in a wheelchair, the message that I got from my parents and all the older people in my life was, don't stare, don't even think about asking a question, forget, and what happened was we had no communication with those people who were doing things in a different way. I love that your book is letting kids know, giving families a way to sit down and read a great story with their kids to help them understand that there are lots of different ways we can communicate with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's written in a way that shows like the beauty, of all the things that Sabita loves. So it's really just a beautiful story about her and, her golf cart, and she loves chips and swimming. And so, it's fun. And my illustrator is amazing, and she knows us personally and was just able to bring that through light, through the illustrations and the pictures. And so it's just a really good book to read in general. But then on top of that, it has this great message that needs to be shared and talked about so that we can create, again, more communication and a better world for diversity and inclusion. And I think it's not that kids don't want to or that people don't want to communicate. It's just like what you said, like, oh, it may be rude if you ask a question, or don't make them feel different, or, so we just kind of like ignore the issue. And through this book and the message, I want to embrace the issue, and I want to talk about it, and I want the kids to ask whatever questions, that they have, because that's how we learn, and that's how we grow and spread, the message and spread the love of just being, communicative and interactive, with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I remember in my time working with kids with these severe developmental disabilities, I have one right now in my mouth. And, my job was to get these kids out into the community and give them opportunities to develop friendships. And one of the things that was really gratifying for me is when we were helping them develop friendships with kids in a typical public school. A lot of times after, being with my students for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, the public school students would turn to me and say, oh, Alfie likes potato chips. I like potato chips. And they were seeing that these kids had personalities, that they had likes and they had dislikes, and there was things that kids had in common with them. This is I think this is just a beautiful opportunity. Your book gives people a beautiful opportunity to know that kids with disabilities, kids who are on the autism spectrum, are individuals, and helps us see them as individuals and more importantly, get to know people as individuals.
Right, absolutely. So like you said, a lot of kids like to ride golf carts and go swimming and like chips. And so they can really connect and go, oh, Sabita's just like me. But she, when she wants to swim, instead of saying, I want to swim, she goes to her iPad and says, I want to swim, and really, encourages that. And that's one thing that we're trying to do here in our community too, is we're doing some peer, support groups through. I'm opening up an autism center called Autism Wonderland, AWETISM Wonderland, that really focuses on the wonder and the awe and the beauty of things like this, of how kids on the spectrum interact differently, how they communicate differently, but how it's beautiful and they have skills and abilities, and we're training and getting, their peers to understand that. And we're doing groups where, the kids are talking to each other using the iPad and communication. So again, and we, impact a larger community through, the use of that. And that book is just a catalyst, to start that discussion and to bring awareness to the issues.
Yeah. And I think one of the lessons, too, that we can share with our kids is that a lot of the innovation that we're experiencing now with technology, a lot of that was driven by scientists, computer scientists, trying to find ways to give folks like Sabita a way to communicate. I, working with those students back in the late 80s, we were one of the first schools that had touch screen computers. And they were very primitive, and they didn't work all that well. But it was the beginning of what we have today, where we can touch a screen and move this over there, and I'm imagining, that a lot of the text to talk that technology that your daughter is using is enabling us to go to a foreign country and type in a word to Google Translate and then stick our phone out and say, I want a hot dog in whatever language it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's kids that have other medical issues and don't have use of their fingers in order to use that. And they have programs that literally are eye gaze. The child can literally look at a picture or a word, and then the iPad, would say that. And it's like, how amazing is that? Like, how amazing is this technology through the use of these communication programs for kids that wouldn't have a voice? I think, like, with my daughter, like, if she couldn't learn sign and, like, there was no other way, and, like, we were the only ones that could understand how, that she could communicate, like, how, sad would that be if she wanted to communicate? We have to give, her a way to be able to do that. So the beauty of this technology, through that communication just, gave her a voice. And I was so passionate about it that, several years ago, I started a nonprofit called Sabita Speaks, where we raise funds to give iPads and communications and voices, to kids that, financially, couldn't have them. Because as a mom, my heart went out, to say, like, oh my gosh, there's kids out there that don't have a voice like Sabita, but don't have the resources. And, like, how in this world can we have kids that don't have the opportunity to have a voice? They have a lot to say, and their voice can, change the world. And, like, we need to do a better job at being able to provide those resources, whatever it is, for those kids. And like you said, all the scientists and the computer people that, really paved the way to develop these programs, so that they could be possible, it's just incredible and such a gift to the world.
And I'm thinking, as you're speaking, we've spent a lot of time with different authors whose mission in life is to get kids interested in the STEM field, especially getting young girls interested in the STEM field. And I'm thinking to myself, what better way to get a caring young person, be it a boy or a girl, interested in the STEM fields, if you're able to say to them, you could create something that will enable a person to communicate, to walk, to care for themselves. You could be the person to change somebody else's life by learning these, how to do these things with computers or science or STEM or whatever. I'm thinking it's just a great win-win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I'm going to write that down to use that later. Cause like you said, I mean, these kids have the power to change the world, and they have the power to understand these things. And when, when kids meet Sabita, it's like, she's so sweet, and they, love her, and they, just kind of like gravitate to her, and they want to help. And they're like, what can I say? What can I do? How can I help? And so that takes it, to the next level beyond that. Like, it's not just helping one person. Like, what you can actually do can help the community, can help, a nation, can help the world. Like, it's that powerful. And the more we talk about it, and the more we provide resources, and the more we encourage, parents to advocate for that with their kids and give their kids that opportunity, the more likely all that's going to happen. So.
Absolutely. Well, I want everybody to be able to know where they can go to find out more about Sabita Finds Her Voice and find out more about all the great things that you're doing.
Yeah. So, it's on Amazon. Sabita Finds Her Voice is on Amazon. It's the Kindle, paperback, hardback versions on there. I have a couple different websites because I have a couple different businesses, but the newest one is the Autism Wonderland, which is just the AWETISM Wonderland.com. And that's the new autism center, that I am opening up here in St. Augustine, within the next month and a half. It's really exciting. And then I have a company, Therapeutic Expressions, where we provide mental health services and ABA services in the homes, the schools, and the communities. And that's just therapeuticexpressions.com. I have my own website, StephanieVavilala.com, which really houses all the things that we're talking about. So the book, the nonprofit, the therapy center, the Autism Wonderland. And then, of course, last but not least, I have SabitaSpeaks.org, which is my nonprofit that provides the iPads and communications and training for kids like Sabita that don't have the resources to have those things, so that no child is left without a voice.
Boy, Stephanie, I really wish you'd find some motivation to get up and, kind of do something in the world. You're just kind of sitting around.
I know. And I feel like half my life is over, and like I have so much more that I want to do, but I'm just, she inspired me. I was a licensed mental health counselor by trade, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. I have my company, And then I went through a lot of infertility issues with her. I had her, she had autism. And then it was like, what is this? I went back to school, and it was, she's really inspired me to go back to school, to become a BCBA, to offer that to the community. And then of course, to write this book. And, I've got a couple of other books that, are in the back seat. Hopefully when I get the center open, I can get back and it's out there. I just happen to have a child that was born to me that gives me inspiration on a daily basis, but, it's out there all over. It's, in the beauty of other kids and adults and nature and all those kinds of things, that it's really important, to me for, people to find that inspiration and do things like this that has a positive impact on the world. So I will, as it comes to me, I will continue to output it. And as we know, as we give, like we get so much in return, for serving others and for giving back too. So it's a total win-win, and I'm very blessed.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We've had a wonderful time speaking with our guest, Stephanie Vvavilala. Be sure to check out Sabita Finds Her Voice. Hey, Stephanie, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Really fascinating conversation we're going to have with Jenny Roig. She is the founder and leader of Roig Academy. And that's a school for kids with language-based learning challenges. We're going to have a really fascinating conversation about how we can best help our kids develop a love of reading and learning. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you let the world know all about it. Our Certified Great Read program is a fantastic way to celebrate your book and let thousands of people know all about it. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Scroll on down to Certified Great Reads. Find out how this program can help you the same way it's helped dozens and dozens of authors. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Stephanie Vvavilala. Be sure to check out Sabita Finds Her Voice. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.